Hello. You are watching an informative video to learn more about an English word. Perfect. 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 Definitions of perfect. Adjective. Having all the required or desirable elements, qualities, or characteristics, as good as it is possible to be. Perfect.
What's good, beautiful people? It is DW. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I am joined by or with the awesome Liam.
What's good? My name is Liam. My pronouns are he, him, and his.
And y'all know it. We've been kicking it since elementary school, and you are listening to What's Perfect Really podcast.
On this podcast, we're going to talk about transformative moments in music and the cultural impact that those moments had on our lives and the world.
Our mission is to bring light to the perfect moments in music we think deserve a little more appreciation.
Today, we're going to talk about not a song, not a verse, not a video, but a kind of a collective movement that I decided to distill down to two songs and then one video. The topic of today is Bronx drill music. We'll be going into a couple particular artists that I think have made some perfect material. One's name is K-Flock. The other guy's name is DThang. And the last thing we will talk about is a short 24-second video that showed up on Reddit that is like part of the Bronx drill culture. And it's kind of like a mashup of a couple things. So because this podcast is a little more complicated, we may need to like find a way to like put in the descriptions of our videos links to everything to help the listeners.
Are you cueing me to be like, DW, get on your stuff? Like, we need links. We gotta need links in these descriptions for y'all. Like, get on your job.
I think this one's gonna be tougher than our previous one.
Previously,
it was just like, here's someone famous. We talk about them.
Okay. So, a couple things. First of all, what is drill, right? And then also talking about, like, okay, you're talking about these specific artists. There's so much. So this is a movement.
Correct.
A music movement, right? So what I want to talk about is the first video you sent me, because I had never heard about the Bronx drill movement. Like, when did this start? Do you know when it started?
So yeah, you can think of like New York City drill as a whole, kind of like think of it like Pop Smoke, which is basically before the pandemic started, like 2018. And then Pop Smoke obviously is murdered. And right kind of in the wake of that happening, you have a little bit of a vacuum in New York City. And I think a couple people all try to do it. But lately what's happening basically from 2020 to now is the Bronx has really kind of picked up the baton and ran with it. And not only just kind of made it a New York City thing, but in my opinion, they made it a very like Bronx thing. Like they fully lean into the Bronx of who they are. Okay,
so I want to talk about this video that you sent me, but first I want to dial it back. Dial it back to like 2013, 2012, whatever. Even the TI. So all these dates, I'm not claiming all the dates are completely correct or whatever. I'm just I'm figuring out the pieces as we're talking about it. So first, I what is it? I think in 2015, let's say, I was taking this hip hop class, Chicago hip hop class. As part of finishing up some of my artistic work. And we started talking about trap and drill. And for the life of me, I'm like, I don't understand what the difference is. So I asked, the person who came in who's talking about it. I'm like, yo, what's the difference between trap and drill? And what this person said to me is trap is rapping about the trap house, rapping about drugs. And drill is rapping about guns and anything associated with guns.
Yeah.
Right. So those are the two differences. So when I was in Chicago, trap and drill were really, really big. That was like Chief Keef.
This is like the birthplace of drill music, Chicago, right when you were there.
Yeah. So so this whole movement is happening. And I'm like, I'm not in it, because that's just not what I do. But, listening to it. But one name that constantly came up was King Louis. Yeah. That was something like people are like, yo, you don't know King Louis? Like when I would talk to, or I'd be teaching and the young people I'd be working with, like, yo, King Louis, that's that person. And another name that came up that I want to mention, but I don't know if directly connected to drill or trap, but I know at this time this artist Tink.
Yep.
Tink was coming up, and Tink absolutely fire. Like I absolutely loved. And so when I was in Chicago, it was like, yo, this whole music movement that a lot of people are seeing right now. Yeah. It was huge. You know, it was huge there. You know how you caught in like a moment. And so there's this moment, like you're saying, this Bronx drill moment. It's almost like when T.I. and trap music. Yep. Right. Like that was a moment when T.I. I like my top, they it back. I don't know if that was the moment or whatever, but I don't know which album was the moment, but I remember T.I. was heavy. I didn't even know I was listening to trap music. So now that we're fast forwarding to this video of Bronx drill, Liam sends me this video and I just see what looks like teenagers, these black teenagers just down the street bopping, meaning they're doing whatever moves they're doing, but it's like this fun bounce that's happening and they're just having a good time. And you know, one of the teenagers, I don't know if you want to describe it because you sent me the video, so I don't want to take the moment. So let me let you have that.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the first one a bit, but I want to hear your perspective on it. So the first song that we're talking about is an artist named K Flock. He's 18 years old, and the song is called "Is You Ready?" And that's the one you're talking about. And I think the video is pretty stunning visually. It's not creative in a sense of like their new locations or new ideas, but you know, it's very captivating visually, in my opinion. What is your thought when you first saw it?
Is You Ready is like the that's the one with the scarf,
exactly the scarf. They're kind of like hanging out at a playground. Okay. Yep.
All right. So here's the thing. First of all, what I know I'm gonna have to do after this episode, I know I'm gonna have to meditate because drill and trap is like it's a whole nother world to me. Where I'm like, yo, all this violence for me, I gotta go sit somewhere. So I'm gonna acknowledge that. Like that's how I know I'm old. I'm like, I gotta go sit and meditate this out. But I can always appreciate a moment in music. Yeah. Right. So this is K Flock, right?
This is K Flock. Yep.
All right. So I did go on a deep dive of Bronx drill music too, and I got some comments. But what I loved, there's something so significant about young energy.
Yes.
Right. Like young movement energy in any movement across the board, no matter where you're at, it's young energy that moves that thing. Right. So when I look immediately at the video, I'm thinking to myself, yo, I love the energy that's here. I love the energy that's in this moment that's happening. And I feel like we talked about this a couple episodes before. Hip hop, like what's hip, you know, when you're young, you know what's hip. And I got that from Andre 3000 had said this at one point. Like people were like, why don't you rap? Why don't you rap? And Andre was like, hip hop is the music for like what's happening in the moment and what's hip. And I don't feel like I'm that anymore. Yeah. So there's not much for me to rap about. And I don't know where I was reading that about Andre 3000, but it's so relevant right now. Yeah. Where we're looking at this movement that's massive, right? That you introduced me to. And I'm looking and I'm like, damn, I could tell that this is really massive in the Bronx because when I think about what was happening in Chicago, when it was going down, there's similar elements. It has this excitement to it. You can see these young people that are excited about what they're talking about. I'm not necessarily like, but it's the environment they're in. So it kind of reminds me of like NWA. Yeah. Like the drill movement, all the movements that were happening, these little sprinkles of movements that were happening in music where people were like, oh, this is really dope. This is new. So it was kind of electric for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a big part of drill. So like you have drill music, which has a particular sound, very aggressive. You're right, very violent. But there's also beyond just the sound of it. I think drill, and again, I think we're hop speaking about a hip music thing, but you know, we can still appreciate it. To me, drill is like a young person's music. You know, hip hop at this point is old enough where you can be Jay-Z's age and still make relevant hip hop. But drill, if you're an old person trying to make drill, it doesn't sound right at all. It really is a young person's game.
It's kind of like, do you mind if I just insert here? Ahead. I just thought I got an image of Paid in Full. You know, when you have drug dealing is a young person's game, you know, and usually the older people are like dead or they're kind of out of the loop. Yeah. or they may be like some laid up in the back, but they always have like these younger folks that are like, yo, this is what's good.
Yeah.
This is what reminds me, like drill and trap, these kind of movements, they remind me of like, I'm gonna watch from the outside.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch y'all do you from the outside. But it looks like a ton of energy, a ton of life that y'all are pouring into this segment.
Yeah. I think that's a good point, because as we talk about these songs and as people listen to them, if you've heard them already or you listen to them after we talk about them, they're not breaking new ground with the content that they're talking about. In fact, a lot of it is very like negative, problematic. And in K Flock's example, he's actually in jail right now waiting trial for murder. So, you know, some of the stuff that he's rapping about in the songs, he's an 18-year-old guy potentially ruined his life, right?
Yeah.
But what's perfect to me about these songs is it does, like, I don't know, when I hear it, it really captures this. What is it like to be an 18-year-old? What is that feeling like? And when I listen to K Flock or I listen to DThang or I watch that, as we get into later, there's an Adele dancing video. How would you describe that video? We'll get to it later, but there's this video where these people are, I don't even know the name of the dancing that they're doing, but it's this very New York Bronx type dance right now. And it's over this drill version of an Adele song. It's amazing. But again,
we can break it down.
Yeah, it's like
we'll break it down a little bit later.
Watching that stuff takes me back to what I felt like on some level, the energy I had when I was 18 years old.
So where were you when you were 18? Like, because I'm bringing it back, you know, you start going into that lane.
Yeah.
Like when I think about when I was 18, I was in New York because my undergrad work was in New York. So for the first time, I really felt like, ooh, I am in the know. Like I know what's ripe right now. You know what I mean? So like there are a lot of things I think I was telling you about chicken noodle soup, right, was popping, but like the toe up, like that dance, I don't know if I can't remember, but maybe I was phasing out of the era. The Get Light dance must have been later, but I was still associating it with the time. I can't remember all the dances or whatever, but I do remember like the moment and the movements that were happening there and being excited, like, and not caring about stuff. There's different kind of energy that you have when you're 18, where it's just like, I'm going, like, this is right in front of me. I don't really care about the world perspective. I care about this one thing. And I'm gonna keep that energy. And I think like when you talk about something like Reasonable Doubt, that album, that Jay-Z energy on that album, you're never gonna get that back because there's a different kind of hunger that comes with being that age and then being on the scene for the first time. It's like there's an aggressiveness and maybe even a joy. It's kind of interesting because when I look at the video, I see so much joy. But it's so heavy. It's like I'm doing something productive, but also how productive is it really? Because this is where I'm at, you know what I mean? But also like you could be doing so many other things and now you're making music and you know what I mean? So there's a lot of things. It's like such a oxymoron. I don't know, like whole situation.
I think music in general, it provides like a unique thing where there is no fountain of youth. We all get older, and as you get older, you're further removed from your ability to have that feeling when you were 18 to generate it on your own. It goes away. But you can appreciate when you hear an 18-year-old being an 18-year-old. It captures that little bit of moment for you where it takes you back to what that is. And to me, music presents that much more than any other type of art form, because there's a lot more gatekeeping in other art forms, whether it's like film or like actual art. But music is one of those things that an 18-year-old could just jump into, especially with the technology it is right now. And they don't need help from some older person to like potentially fuck up the youthful vibe of it. To me, when I hear the songs that we're talking about, K Flock, which is called what is it, If You Feel or something like that, and then another guy named DThang, which his song is called Caution. And both of those songs we listen to them, to me, just like perfectly exemplify young people totally taking ownership over what they're doing and presenting it to the world. But like you say, you can tell they care about their small circle. And that's actually a beautiful thing. I think more people should do that instead of kind of trying to appeal to everybody. And I think that's what makes these perfect.
Right. It's like this learning. It's watching it is a lesson in life in some ways. When you look at, there's so many layers to it, but when I'm looking at the way that people are interacting with their people and taking care of their community per se, in that moment, to be able to see that, like in real time with all of this in theory, violence happening around, but
Yep.
people being like, hey, these are my people, this is my block. You know what I mean? Like we hold each other down. At least that's like that's my perception from what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking I wanted to ask you about beats specifically.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because I don't know if there's a difference between drill, trap, the way that the production is scored, or I don't know if scored, but the production is put together. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So drill definitely, it's like you can tell that drill came after trap, right? There's like a whole hi-hat and drum type of thing that trap has that set the foundation for drill.
Can you give us an example of just like a hi-hat drum?
Well, I will try.
Can you describe it or anything
I'll try to
people who
describe
don't
it as
listen
best
to
I
music?
can. Yeah.
Okay.
But you know, in trap music, the hi-hats are very like spaced, and then a big like a quick hi-hat and then a space. Whereas like old New York was very steady, just and drill takes after that trap style hi-hat. And the drum patterns are also similar, where there's a lot of times there's a lot of space in the drum pattern. Which leaves openings for the MC to be able to kind of fill that with just these lyrical moments. However, where drill is different than trap is a lot of times the samples that are being used are kind of more like classical, like dramatic, almost like cinematic type samples, like very ambient.
Okay. You talking about drill?
Drill, yeah.
Okay.
Did I say trap?
No.
Okay.
No. You said. I think you said everything correct. I'm just wrapping my head around it.
Trap music is more like synths and keyboards, and drill music is like sampling things, kind of like eerie stuff or like an orchestra or something like that. And then on top of the samples that are distinctuate drill, the bass lines are very different than any other type of rap music I heard before. I think drill bass lines are really one of those kind of like leaps forward in a musical idea that when you hear it, you're like, the first time you hear it, you're like, that sounds really weird. I don't know how to absorb that yet because you haven't heard it. But then once you get used to it, you appreciate it. And now I really like the drill, the creativity of how they kind of fuse a bunch of different stuff together with drill music. One thing that drill music does a very cool job of right now is they take like very pop songs that you've heard before that are all over the radio and have nothing to do with gangster rap music at all. But then they'll flip it in a drill way and it sounds amazing.
Oh my gosh, that's what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Yo, I absolutely love the creativity of that. The idea of like, I was listening, I went in a deep dive and heard Britney Spears Toxic.
Oh yeah.
On drill. Really? And I was like, yo, this is amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I was flipping, but then when you like were showing me the video and I heard the Adele with the drill, I was like, yo, it's like that time. I don't know if you saw the internet when they started making Disney songs, trap songs.
Oh no.
And it was just like this whole thing. And I thought it was like the most ridiculously awesome thing because it was just so opposite. Right. And I love when people, here's that artistic word, juxtapose those things, right?
Yeah.
When they're in opposition, I love, I don't know if that would be duality, right? These dualities in textures and in music of like, how is Britney Spears attached to drill, which is so deeply rooted in violence and guns, and Britney Spears is like, it's Britney, bitch. Queen. You know what I mean? Exactly, like that to me is so creative to take those things. So when I'm thinking about Bronx drill, because there's an evolution of drill, for just talking about drill for a moment, when you talk about Chicago, and I love Chicago drill sounds like Chicago drill. It sounds like the people who are creating that music in Chicago. There's a little bit more, it's a different vibe, right? A little bit more laid back. To me, there's a little bit more space in the lyrics, like a little bit more repetitive in that way. And then when I hear the Bronx drill, it sounds like lyrical drill.
Yeah.
Right? It sounds like a New York sound in drill music, right? So it's really, really dope. You said something about London. Was this influenced by London?
Yeah, so my understanding, and again, I don't think either one of us claim to be full experts on it, but drill started in Chicago. Obviously, it gained notoriety kind of all over, but the next place to really totally adopt it and kind of infuse it into their music scene is London. And there's a lot of UK drill music, a lot. And it's really phenomenal. We could do a podcast on some of them. After London really got going, that's where Pop Smoke came in and New York kind of embraced the drill music. And now you actually have London and New York. There's a lot of kind of like a stepbrother situation where they both feed off of each other. And London kind of really is the bigger influence on New York drill than Chicago is. It's like Chicago came first, then London. Now it's in New York.
Yeah. And I also want to let people know for those of you, because up until this moment, because this is a moment in music that more so a moment in music that we're covering. We're capturing a culture that's happening.
Yeah.
It's been happening for a minute, like what, a year or two or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know how
like
long.
2020 is when I think it really started to jump up in the Bronx.
Right. So we're capturing like a whole culture and being able to say like, prepare yourself. If you go and listen to this, prepare yourself for what it is.
Yeah.
Right. But then also finding that, I think what's so beautiful about what you're saying is finding the appreciation in the talent that's exhibited. Like when I look at the video with K-Flock, I'm not like, oh, I could tell that you warmed up your vocal cords before this and your diction is spot on. No, you know what I mean? Like you're not hearing those things. And I think it's a music is the times, right? When I grew up, there were music classes everywhere. You could take music, you could take music theory, you could do all these things. When I was working in Chicago, there were no music classes. In 2015, I was teaching music theory. When, in order for them to understand the concepts that we were working on. And I don't really know, like, I mean, I know a bar, I know a quarter note, you know, but that's where it was. And so I think the music, to be able to take that, for young people to take that and be like, this is all that I have. Yeah. Like y'all are not teaching us cursive. I don't even have a signature. Yeah. Right. So I don't know anything about diction. I don't know any way about how to get around these vowels or to approach this like this, and to still take that and make it into something. To me, is just like, it's the craftiness. Yeah. The craftiness is something that is so brilliant that is not given its due, I think, in time and time again when these movements happen.
Yeah. It makes me think of something in an earlier podcast. You talked about Chica. Yeah. And one experience you had while listening to Chica was that it gave you this like, and I may misquote you a little bit, but it gave you this like belief in the younger generation and their ability to like, they don't need my help. Like they got this, you know? In fact, they're better for just kind of having it on their own and kind of, that's what I like about the Bronx drill. So one thing I think that stifled New York City music in a lot of ways, particularly rap music, is this idea that it had to like pay homage to all the like historical hip hop figures. And to me, it kind of like made it shitty. Like you needed a cosign by some old New York rapper in order to be relevant. And these guys, it seems like they don't even know who Jay-Z is, like, or any old Biggie. They don't, like, when you listen to it, it's so far removed from that hip hop.
Yes.
I think it's very liberating to hear it, because at the same time that it's removed from that, when you listen to these guys, you're like, they are 100,000% from the Bronx. Like there is no kind of sort of, they don't sound like they're trying to be from Atlanta. They fully lean into what makes them from the Bronx. And it feels good to like see some young people doing something that you just feel like they got this. Like the future is there's hope for the future.
Yeah, and I think about there was a starting point for everybody. Like with NWA, niggas with an attitude. These niggas had an attitude. Like, you know what I mean? Like they were creating chaos everywhere they went. And when we talk about toxic, full on hip hop, everything on display, this is what's happening right now in the Bronx drill. It was the same thing that was happening with NWA. And, you know, when you get the chance to see these people grow up, like I would have loved to see Tupac grow up and see what that would look like. I would have loved to see Nipsey Hussle grow past that age and see what would Nipsey Hussle be like at 50. Yeah. Right. So you get to see a Dr. Dre at 40, 50 and see like what is the difference in their life from where they came from. Yeah. And, you know, my hope is that when we're talking about Bronx drill, I would love to see K-Flock at 50. Yeah. And be like, what was that experience like? You know, it's kind of when we talk about in the 60s, I was saying Phil Spector, I think, is now like
something like, crazy happened.
Yeah, so like, right. I don't know, but like, I forget what it was. Something happened. I don't know.
There's like a mugshot of him looking wild.
So something happened. I don't know any of those details, but I do know there's a movie, 20 Feet from Stardom, I think it is, with Darlene Love is featured in it. And Darlene Love was inducted into Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but Darlene Love is notoriously dope backup singer, and has been doing it since like the 60s, since they were 18, and is, you know, this story is this beautiful story of saying like how this person had these highs and lows singing backup, but they captured a sound in the 60s of like having these Black female singers that were capturing sounds that everybody wanted a piece of, because it was a mixture of their youth and how they were singing that was creating a sound. And even Darlene Love says it in the documentary, is saying it was the youth, that the sound that people loved. It was the youth of that time, because I can't do what I was doing at 18. Like your voice matures over time. And so like looking at these moments, and then even seeing Darlene Love from reflecting on that moment, from like, wow, what a time, you know. I think that was definitely when like David Bowie and like that song Sweet Home Alabama and all that stuff. So just reflecting on that and placing it here, because I think it's so easy to look at young people, especially black male identified people in the hood, talking about guns, et cetera, and be like, oh, this shit right here, that's what's wrong with everything, you know, rather than see like, wow, look at these people with this creative capital. Look at these young people having a great time, and they're talking about what's happening. Like they're surviving. Because this is the state that they're in, just like how NWA, that was the state that NWA was in, and how it was creating people like, that's ugly, but they're showing us who we are. Right. And so we have to be able to see that. I don't know.
It's one of these moments where both things are true. It's like, on the one hand, they are talking about terrible stuff, and a guy like K Flock, who's like a talented 18-year-old, may spend the rest of his life in jail now. And that's awful. And nobody should praise the lifestyle that created that or glorify that to a certain extent. That part is true. But at the same time, you have an incredibly talented 18-year-old who you can't dismiss, you know. And it's like, sometimes it's easy as you get older to be like, oh, 18, like they still have a lot to learn, but a young person can create something that only a young person can create. And once you get older, you can't go back and make that stuff again. You only have that one opportunity. And I think that's what you're seeing right now in the Bronx Drill, is this young person's music that's just, to me, sounds very authentic to a fault, where you have criminal stuff kind of leaking into the music to the point where a lot of these talented guys are going to jail. Or worse.
Did you like I think there was a case that Jay-Z or something with a couple of other rappers are bringing to wanting to in court get lyrics can't be used against rappers.
I heard about that. Yeah, he's trying to make it so that in a courtroom you can't introduce rappers' lyrics against them.
I think that's interesting.
I
think it's interesting, but I was thinking about that as we were talking about drill, and it's like, what's true, what's not true, what's real, what's not real, because the lines is like in anything in music, people create things from their imagination, they embellish, and some things are straight on true. Like, you know, and some people are toying with you in the music, as you can see in the case of R. Kelly, absolutely toying with people, having this information and putting it in the music, and then being like, let me, you know.
Thumbing their nose at everybody.
You know, or at least saying like, I'm doing this. And I'm blatantly putting it there. So in one hand, it could mean something. On the other hand, it's like, you know, so I don't really know, but I think it's interesting that's happening. All right. We're going back to this video that you sent me.
K Flock, if you haven't seen it, the video is awesome. The beat is kind of like eerie. It's got this like Channing sampled thing with a really hard bass and drill drum pattern. The kid K Flock is super raw. Again, he is not an MC's MC. It's not lyrical. It's not impressive in that regard at all. What is impressive is the energy that you have when you listen to it and you see him coming with. What did you like anything in particular about the K Flock song?
I think for me, because I didn't really get into the lyrics too much, but what I did love about the song, I loved the beat on that one. Like, I think it was just, there was a cleanliness about it. Right. And I think the way that lyrically this person's tone blended, it was almost like the perfect moment, the perfect blend of tone with a beat. And for me, I was just, every time I would look at the other songs that you sent me, I would go right back to this song. Because it just seemed like it was a masterpiece right there. Of the way those things synced up and matched.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing that's cool in the video too, you can't hear it when you listen to it. When you watch the video, you can see there's like a dance style right now that's very big, obviously beyond New York and all that. But it seems like in the Bronx, this thing's called like bunny. They have a specific twist on it that you see in the video.
Yes.
That's also just really cool to watch. And again, like young people being young people and doing stuff that old people can't do.
Yeah. And to speak to that, so when I was watching it, because you sent the Adele drill video. Yeah. And on this video that Liam had sent me, he's like, yo, this is it right here. I didn't really understand it, but I'm like, these teenagers are on the street, they're doing this dance, right? And it's kind of like this bop where you bend down, you kind of like springing from your knees and popping up. It almost looks like it's in between a Russian step, which in then like they would call it in the breaking world, where like you put your dun 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 dun, whatever. Yep. Like I don't know if that's the music, but like I don't know what they played on the cartoons. Yeah, the Russian step. It's like super stereotypical what I'm doing right now. Sorry, y'all, but you know we are where we are. We are where we are. I'm doing my best. And so that step is also a break step. Like often people will break that out when they're doing top rocks or whatever, or footwork. So it has that bounce in the knees a little bit that's going on there, that variation bounce. And it also looks like what's called a duck walk that comes from pop dip spin, which is Vogue, which is the bounce where you bend down, you get on your knees and like you're on your toes. It's like, let me try to describe this. You're squatting. You're like in a deep squat, but your knees are in front of your toes and you get a little bounce going on. I don't know, whatever, you got to watch the video, but so it's a combination of those things. And so again, we were talking about creativity, everybody's taking these moves because everything is invented and recreated, right? Taking these moves and recreating it. So they're bopping down the street. I'm gonna call it a bop. And then every once in a while I can see the variation is that they have this kick of their leg when they're bopping that comes out. I saw it in the video, the K-Flock video too. Yeah. And so you have these young people down the street, what looks like downtown in New York, and like there's tourists over there, and you can see they're just being wild. And I'm having, and you can see the black woman in the back, like you said, having like like amping them up. It's like, yo, black femmes, we always be out there like, yeah. I'll amp somebody up in a minute, in a minute. And then like there's another guy, this touristy guy, and like you see the teenager put them in like a headlock, but it's with the move. So it's like they're descending and they put them in a headlock. And then the bounce is when the guys like, get off of me. And it's perfectly on rhythm. And you can just see all of them like, just bop into it. And it's just like this beautiful moment that if I were that tourist person, that person put me in a headlock, I'd be so upset. But if I was like the auntie in the back, in the back, like, yeah, boo, go ahead, get it. Like, I'd be really happy to see that moment in real time or in person. So that to me describes like when you showed me that video and it had the Adele and the drill mixed into it. Yeah. I was like, yo, this seems like it's a perfect moment that's happening right now. Yeah, exactly. You just hit me too. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's like the best 24-second video you may ever watch in your life. And just to kind of summarize it again, it's a group of like 3 dudes and they're in Times Square because you can see the tourists and the lights and everything like that. And they're doing, I guess, this bop dance. I'm sure there's a real phrase that describes the thing, and we just sound like old heads trying to talk about it. But and these guys are doing it, and the tourists are around them, and there's like, for lack of a better way, they just look like this kind of stereotypical like Asian tourist family, kind of like accidentally beside this group of dudes dancing. And then the dude, it's just like he embraces the Asian dude kind of in a headlock, but it's not like a mean headlock. He's not doing it in a fucked up way. It's like literally just in the dance. But of course, the dude is like, what the fuck? Like, you're all on me. So he brushes him off. But the guy dancing, like, he doesn't skip a beat. Like,
not at all.
You can tell he's not offended. He's just like, he's in his own mind. Like, he's just doing his own thing.
Yes, like when you're in the zone.
Exactly.
He's in it, totally you're just like, zone. I'm in the middle of the movement. Yeah. And I'm gonna get this movement like, with my dudes, like, that's how I see it. It's so epic. And I think, here's the thing. My spouse was like, now, you would be upset if you were that person in the video, like you're laughing now, but you would be upset. It's like, hell yeah, I'd be upset. But I'm not that person in the video, so I'm gonna laugh right now. Like I'm gonna laugh because it was great. It was right in stride, you know. So it was. I thank you for sending it. It definitely lit up my day for sure.
It's just such like a blend of so many things at once. You have like New York City Times Square, which is already a blend of everything. You have like Asian tourists. You have young Black kids dancing this like embracing this new dance. You have like the old auntie in the background, like cheering them on. You have Adele singing this like epic ballad over a drill song. So it's like this fusion of all these things at once. And I don't know, this might sound better coming from you, but it just stood out to me. So I'm watching this video, and of course, like I go deep into the rabbit hole of the internet, and I read every comment that you can read about the video. And then there's just one comment that made me laugh so hard. And I forget what exactly was it, but it's just that this is why I'm happy I'm Black. And it was just like, he was just like commenting on the video. And it's like, wow. All right.
Oh gosh, my goodness. Yo, we've got to make sure we put that video in.
Yeah,
we gotta find the video. We gotta put it on our IG. I gotta put that video on the IG.
We should do that. We'll just share it as its own thing.
Yeah, no,
that's for everybody to watch it.
Yeah. All right. So you're talking about, who's this next person you're talking about?
The next one is a guy named DThang, and it's a song called Caution. And so coincidentally, DThang and K-Flock, the earlier artists we were talking about, are cousins.
Yes.
They hate each other. And actually in K-Flock's song, when he's kind of in code, dissing somebody, he's dissing DThang.
Yeah.
And so DThang has a very different voice than K-Flock or a lot of the artists that you hear in drill, which have these like really like macho kind of deep raspy voice. K-Flock has like a piercing, annoying voice kind of. But from a former audio engineer's perspective, his voice cuts perfectly through the mix. I mean, he's got one of those voices that just sits in there, and it's like he's never like fighting with the percussion or the synth. Like some people have a voice that just naturally sits right in a pocket that makes it really easy to listen to. You don't miss what he's saying. You don't have to struggle against other things. And that's rare.
You know, that's so interesting, because when I listened to it, I didn't come across it all. Like now that I'm thinking about it, when I was listening to the K-Flock and then I go to the other one, my ears were like, this is nasally. I don't really know. Like, I mean, it sounds great, but maybe I wasn't as into the beat. There was something to me that wasn't meshing.
Yeah.
You know, but I never thought about it from that perspective of like, oh, wow, that's something. It makes me want to go back and listen to it again.
All right. So what you're saying is I need to convince you that this song is actually perfect. K-Flock, it sounds like you're convinced. Like there's something perfect about the K-Flock song. DThang, you're like, he's just sounds like a cousin that.
Yeah, it got like 30 seconds of my life. Yeah. Like I wasn't even like, let me give this a second go around. Nah, I wasn't doing it. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cute. You know, like not in a way. I'm sure this person is really talented, but for me, it didn't sing to me. It didn't capture me.
Got it. Okay, so all the more reason for me to try to like express why I think the DThang song is perfect. So again, the song came out in 2020. All this Bronx drill music coming out during the pandemic, and it's very recent. All of what's happening. DThang is also in jail right now, so it's a little bit of what we're talking about earlier, where there's the good and bad of being young and this music. And what's interesting is both these guys are from the Bronx. They're from different parts of the Bronx. K-Flock is from like the Fordham Road part of the Bronx, and then DThang is from. I forget the name of them, but anyone that's driven through the Bronx, you've seen there's this one part of the Bronx kind of near the river where there's these massive buildings. And I mean, not like projects like tall projects.
Co-op City?
Not Co-op City, like near the river. Like I promise you've seen it. I promise, like when it pointed out, you go, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. They're probably like 40, 50 stories tall. They're like a little bit north of Yankee Stadium. And that's where he's from. So when you see the videos.
The concourse?
No, it's like west of that.
Damn, yo, maybe I know what you're talking about. Look, I'm gonna stop guessing. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you've seen it, you would definitely recognize it. So they're from two very like identifiable neighborhoods in the Bronx. Different. They don't like each other. DThang, as you kind of dive deeper into what he does, great dancer, does a lot of these dance moves in all his videos. And what I think he does perfectly, that I think, assuming hopefully the guy gets out of jail, hopefully, whatever, you just wish good for people. if he's able to continue doing his thing, he has the ability to come up with like catchy phrases to me that really separate him from everybody else in the Bronx drill music. You know, I'm going to sound terrible trying to do this, is where old people should not try to emulate what young people are doing. But he's just got all these little catchphrases, like even my abuela know that. And like just these little silly things where to me, he catches a little bit of that like 50 Cent thing, where when you listen to what he's saying, it's like really violent music, but he does it in kind of like a funny way.
It's kind of like Cardi too, in that way that you're able to grab people with humor.
Yes.
Even though you're talking about some fucked up stuff, you know, and that too is a gift. Like 50 is really good at that. As well, like capturing these moments of comedy in something that's completely not comical. You know.
And one thing is, we talk about the Bronx drill, so I can tell after becoming fans of both these artists, I listen to a lot of Bronx drill, and there is a lot of trash Bronx drill music. There's so much bad Bronx drill music, and a lot of the reason it's bad is because it's like this effort to be too serious and too gangster, and like it's like, I don't want to hear that. Like that just sounds like traumatic to listen to, all this like awful stuff, and then it's like, I don't know, just, you know, it maybe I'm hearing is it seeming less authentic? Yeah, it seems like they're kind of like, let me portray this like idea of what the Bronx is, and that even if they're from the Bronx, and who knows, maybe what some of that stuff is that I'm talking about is authentic, but it sounds like contrived, forced, and it doesn't sound natural. Yeah. You know, it's so interesting because I'm sitting here listening to you. I'm like, I'm wondering, someone listening to us talk about this, and it's like, what's this white guy saying about something forcing it in the Bronx? Like, it's just a funny scene, the two of us, like these old, what would be considered old to an 18-year-old talking about, right? So like, ancient. Yeah, people are trying too hard to be violent. Yeah. Like, I'm thinking about it. I was like, wow, we probably, listening back, sound like some old heads. This might be cringy, but I still trying to like trying to give like an academic appreciation of what's happening here. And again, I think this is something that we all experience, but it's hard to put your finger on. Why is it when someone is 18 years old, they're able to create something that stands alone, and as even if they stay a famous, relevant artist, they can never go back and recreate whatever it was that they created when they were 18, 19, 20 years old. And I think that's what's happening with these two artists in the Bronx right now. They're creating that like a snapshot of young identity, specifically in the Bronx. And it's like energy that when you listen to it, even when you're older, you can kind of go back and be like, he captured that feeling that I remember. Yeah. I mean, I think too, when I'm thinking about what you're saying and watching the drill and the trap, for, you know, I realized how far my life has moved, where I'm like, I can listen to that for a minute. I can't do it for more than that though, because that's just not where I'm at in my life. Yeah. But I can find the moments of appreciation in what that is, you know? And so I think, to me too, it's like, it's tough to be like, here's this movement that's happening, that's really, really dope. And also as a person who's living in the world, who like wants the best for everybody, knowing like, I really want y'all to be able to become the best versions of yourself. And like, is this gonna help you get there? Yeah. Right. So like, I'm thinking as my person who's like been in the world, thinking about how could that help you get there? And then when you tell the story, like, they're in jail, this, that, and the third, I'm like, that sucks. The world, you know, the world. But also just saying it's relevant because through this music, we really get to see ourselves, you know. And I think as a population, within the US population, to say that something is terrible or ruining something is to acknowledge the parts of us that we have kind of, the parts of us as a whole, the ways that we continue to like exterminate and to create, essentially, like, I don't want to see create monsters, because that's like, nobody's a monster, but create these holes and these pits for people, you know what I mean? And then point the finger and say it's your fault. Yeah. You know, when you put people there, you created the environment, and then you want to say, oh, that's not me. Yeah.
So I think it's a reminder too of like, this is what we've created. We've all had a hand in this. And also look at how creative these young people are. And we're not ever going to fully be able to see them because of the mayhem we put in their lives.
Yeah.
So I think when I walk away, that's what I think about. And I wanted to ask you, if you're ready, most fantastical moment.
Yeah. So other than the 24-second Adele drill music dance video in Times Square, my favorite part between these two songs, I guess I could pick one in both songs. So in DThang, and let me say this, I think that one thing that both these guys are doing, but particularly DThang is doing, that I really, really think is perfect, is so often when we create music, and I think in particular rap music, and in particular, there's been this burden put on like New York rap artists that like they have to be able to appeal outside of their immediate neighborhood. And that's the reason that they're not popular, right? Oh, you don't sound enough like this popular artist from Atlanta. Yeah. These guys in the Bronx, to me, they aren't trying to appeal to anyone else, but like literally the other people on their block. And that's very refreshing to hear. It's like everything that you hear from them, from the accent that they rap in, the fact that you talked about that earlier, like Chicago drill music, they rap slower. In New York City, people talk fast, and these guys rap really, really fast. And I love that they fully embrace, they don't water down any of the Bronx. So I listen to these songs all the time right now. My girlfriend is forced to be a bystander to me listening to these songs on repeat. And she's not from New York City or any of that. So she'll listen to it and be like, I have no idea what they're saying. I know they're speaking English, but I have no idea what they're saying. I like that these kids are embracing that. They're not trying to make it so it's accessible. They're trying to present this very pure representation of their immediate culture. And a good example for DThang is in his song. There's this one point where he says the word heavy. He says it as most Bronx-ish as possible. And he drags it out. So, and when you hear it, it stands out. It's definitely like a standout part in the song. I think with K-Flock, it's tough to pick up because I think the whole thing is solid. There's like no bad moment. There's no moment that necessarily stands out. Again, I think the fantastical moment in the K-Flock is the beat selection. That beat is ridiculous. And it's definitely not like other beats that you hear a lot right now.
I mean, I definitely agree with that. I also, like, for the record, Chicago drill, there is fast drill there, but I think it's more of like the environments. You know, there's a more of a the environment is different, the energy is different in Chicago than it is in New York, and the music reflects that. Yeah. You know, I'm thinking there's something else I wanted to say about fantastical. So I think if I'm sharing, you mind if I share? Go fantastical ahead. Moment for me. Absolutely. I think what's fantastic about this in general is that it's a moment. It's a whole moment of people being themselves. You know, and it's so hard to. I think it's really challenging. You know, now being a little bit older, like in, you know, getting into my 40s, to be able to look at the world and see how many people are trying to fit something so often, and then them not wanting to fit. And for me, reflecting back on life and reflecting back in this moment, it's like, this is amazing to just watch them be. Yeah. And for me, it makes it super perfect to be able to see those little moments of being, right? Even though there's all these things swirling and all these things happening and so many things we could talk about that could make this the like possibly worst moment ever. Yeah. But those little glimpses you get of creativity and being, for me, makes it very perfect.
Yeah. Dope.
So if y'all have any comments y'all want to leave for us, you can catch us on IG at What's Perfect Really Podcast. And also, if you want to discuss a moment of music you think is perfect, drop a line explaining why you think the moment is perfect and worth discussing at What's Perfect Really Podcast at gmail.com. And we invite you to take what you want from the podcast and leave what you don't, because ain't nobody perfect.
Hello. You are watching an informative video to learn more about an English word. Perfect. P-E-R-F-E-C-T. Perfect. Definitions of perfect. Adjective. Having all the required or desirable elements, qualities, or characteristics, as good as it is possible to be. Perfect.